But when that letter was sent out,
That's perfectly legal.
but there was an assertion by the chief in this division that this was to deal with the fact that the voting process has been taken over by the left. So we got one of those letters in Vermont. And my question to you is, what do you mean by the left? And do you have any evidence that the so-called system has been overtaken by the left?
What do they really mean when they say the left is taking over our elections? And why does nobody want to answer the simple questions? Stick with me, because what I just watched in this hearing raises some serious alarms. Before we dive in, make sure you like this video, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so more patriots hear the truth the mainstream won't talk about.
Senator Welch.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney General Bondi. I have noticed that at various times when one of my colleagues is pressing you, you come up with something in their background. So I'll be waiting for my turn, but you don't have to do it right now. So let me get to my questions. One of the things that you mentioned, and I agree with this, that it's really tough on the various federal workforce, including our law enforcement folks, who are not getting paid because of the shutdown. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. But I also think that wasn't the whole story. There is an issue here that's going to affect Americans, whether they voted for President Trump or voted for Vice President Harris, and that is the loss of health care, where on November 1st, everyone who is getting Affordable Care Act help to buy insurance is going to get the notice of premium increases. And I got a letter just today from a Vermont family, nuclear family of 5, husband and wife, 54 and 55, with 3 kids, one of whom has acute myeloid leukemia. And the apprehension that they have is that if we don't solve this problem, and November 1 is a urgent date, then their family premiums will triple. It'll be beyond their ability to pay. So I'm assuming that with respect to the threat to health care for families in your state of Florida, in my state of Vermont, you would share that concern and hope that we would resolve that.
Senator Welch, I would be happy to speak with that family too, because there are many nonprofits that help with children with terminal illnesses, and I'm involved in some in Florida. So we would be happy to talk to you about that. As to health care, the government is shut down. It's my understanding, maybe you're not one of them, but because many Democrats want health care for illegal aliens, and that's what shut down the government.
Let me be clear.
That's one of the sticking points, and I don't know if you voted for that or not.
This actually is important to all of us, and the lament I have is that if this health care goes away, this premium support, it is really going to hurt families in red states and blue states. And in Vermont, I mean, we voted Democratic, but we have a lot of good folks who voted for President Trump, and their health care is jeopardized. And there's a November 1 deadline that is coming up. And the reason I'm saying this is that I think it's important for us to try to work out together a resolution that's going to be beneficial to people you care about in Florida and voted for President Trump, and people I care about in Vermont who voted in some cases for Vice President Harris and some for President Trump. So it's not just Democrats not wanting to negotiate. And in fact, we do want to negotiate, and that's why I'd encourage the president to encourage my colleagues on the Republican side to sit down with us and try to see if we can make some progress.
We just witnessed Senator Peter Welch attempt to corner Attorney General Pam Bondi by using a single Vermont family's health care struggle as a political shield. It is a classic tactic. Instead of addressing the actual policy failures that led us here, the left wants to tug at heartstrings to justify a government shutdown. But Bondi did not take the bait. She pointed out the cold, hard truth that the government is currently at a standstill because the left is prioritizing health care for illegal aliens over the needs of American citizens. As a patriot, it is refreshing to see an official who understands that our resources must go to our people first.
Another topic, with the respective voting rights in the letter that your voting rights chief sent out, we got one in Vermont, and it's a demand to get all the information on the voting file. And in that letter, in the announcement of that letter, the chief indicated an apprehension about the voting process being taken over by, quote, the left. Now, do you have any information with respect to Vermont about a takeover of the voting process by, quote, the left?
Senator, I'm not familiar with what you're referring to. We are currently involved in voter roll lawsuits in 6 states. Is that what you're referring to?
No, there's a letter that went out demanding that states, including Vermont, provide all the voting file information,
Right.
includes personal information. But when that letter was sent out,
That's perfectly legal.
but there was an assertion by the chief in this division that this was to deal with the fact that the voting process has been taken over by the left. So we got one of those letters in Vermont. And my question to you is, what do you mean by the left? And do you have any evidence that the so-called system has been overtaken by the left?
We must have fair and free elections.
No, I know that. But I'm asking for the specific basis.
And we will have fair and free elections in this country.
Okay, let me-
Senator, I'd be happy to talk to my chief. Who was it who said that?
It was your chief, which I assume you would know who that is.
The most revealing part of this exchange was when Welch started squirming over the Department of Justice requesting voter file information. Welch wants to know what taken over by the left actually means. He acts like there's no reason at all to be concerned about our voting systems. Meanwhile, Bondi makes it clear, fair and free elections matter, and gathering information is legal and necessary. You and I both know something simple. If elections are supposed to be transparent and clean, then collecting records should not scare anyone, unless there's something they don't want examined. He seemed personally offended that the DOJ would want to ensure that only legal, registered voters are on the rolls in states like Vermont. He kept demanding a definition of the left as if we do not all see the coordinated effort to institutionalize ballot harvesting and resist basic identification measures. Bondi remained calm and focused. She is doing the job we hired her to do, which is ensuring that every legal vote counts and every illegal one is identified. If there is nothing to hide in the Vermont voting files, then why is the Secretary of State there fighting the request so hard? Transparency should be a nonpartisan issue, but the left only seems to care about privacy when it involves government oversight of the election process.
Here's the question here, okay? There is a point of view that is in dispute here about the fairness of elections. But you have the power as the as the Attorney General to use the authority of your office to make demands on states, and you did that with Vermont. That's within your right to do it. I'm not disputing your legal authority to do it.
Is Vermont disputing turning over the information to our office?
Vermont is, the Secretary of State is, and you can resolve that with her, but.
And we have every right to have that information,
Yeah, but here's where
Senator.
I'm going.
Why wouldn't they want to turn it over?
You're a prosecutor with the awesome authority to make the decision that you're going to start an investigation against the state or against an individual. And I know from your experience as a county prosecutor and as the Attorney General in Florida, you took seriously that obligation to have a factual basis before you'd proceed, right?
Senator, I take that role, I take my oath very seriously.
All right, so what I'm
And I
asking-
take fair and free elections in this
No,
country
we
very
all-
seriously.
we all
And that
do.
information, our office is entitled to have that information.
But
And we
the
are
question
involved in
here-
litigation on that, and I
Here's the
assume we'll be
question
involved
I
in
have.
litigation with
We have-
Vermont.
We have a Republican governor in Vermont. We had, our former Republican governor was secretary, was the treasurer for many years, and also the Secretary of State with election responsibility. What I'm asking is, do you or does your head of this voting section have any factual basis that you can point to that justifies your demand that Vermont turn over all this confidential voting rights information?
Well, it would remain confidential with my office, and you just said that you have a Republican governor, so it doesn't make sense what you just said. We've asked that of every state, Senator.
Right, and I'm asking about Vermont and what the factual basis is, but we can move on.
Welch tries to spin it into a story about privacy and no factual basis. But the truth is, voter rolls across the country have had issues for years. Dead voters, duplicate registrations, people registered in multiple states. We've seen it. Asking for data is not attacking democracy, it's protecting it. We also see the classic move. Accuse Republicans of shutting down the government while ignoring the massive spending, incentives, and giveaways Democrats push, including benefits to people who aren't even citizens. Welch wants to say this is all about families, but refuses to admit policies have consequences.
You mentioned that you can't discuss pending litigation, and I think the committee by and large accepted that answer. But I did notice that you spoke at great length about pending litigation, specifically with respect to the questions Senator Cruz asked you about the sentencing of the Kavanaugh defendant. That's pending, right?
He was sentenced to 8 years.
I understand that, but that's on appeal, right?
We will be appealing.
Right, so that makes it pending litigation. So you made an exception with respect to
No.
the Cruz questions.
Hold on. No,
but you
those
didn't
were-
answer
those were
any of the
things-
questions that you said were pending in litigation from any of my colleagues.
Those were facts that came out at the sentencing hearing. You're welcome to see the transcript of the sentencing
No, I
hearing with all
understand
the
that.
gruesome details of what they threatened to do to Justice Kavanaugh and other
I
justices.
condemn what that person did.
That was the sentencing.
But the point here is that that's pending litigation. You indicated you're going to be appealing. It's your right to do that. And you would not, you use that justification to not answer many other questions.
Justification, you're an attorney, Senator.
Okay.
You realize that.
I do want to go back to Homan. You know, there's a tape, right, with Mr. Homan? I mean, first of all, is there a tape that has audio and video of the transfer of the $50,000?
You would have to talk to Director Patel about that.
No, I'm talking to you.
I don't know the answer,
Yet
Senator.
you do know the answer to that.
Don't call me a liar.
I didn't call you a liar.
You just said I know the answer. I said I don't know the answer.
Well,
You have to talk to
okay, let
Director
me-
Patel. What I said is that
Let me put it
investigation was
another way.
closed.
If you don't know, why don't you know whether there was a tape and video?
Senator, I believe that was resolved prior to my confirmation as Attorney General.
Do you think that it is of public interest for the people to know what happened to the 50 grand that the FBI turned over to Homan?
Did you hear what I just said? That was resolved prior to my confirmation as Attorney General. That's why I said I would not know.
It's not resolved. There's $50,000. Homan has it, or somebody has it. Do you have no interest in knowing where it is?
You're not going to sit here and slander Tom Homan. The FBI and Deputy Director Blanche said there was nothing.
I'm not slamming Tom Homan. He got the 50
Tom
grand.
Homan is doing, how do you know that? Tom Homan is doing a great job, as our borders are, keeping your border state safe. You're a border state.
Thank you, Senator Welch.
And then another big red flag. When questions come up about investigations, payments, and tapes, all of a sudden nobody knows anything. It's resolved, and we're told to move on. Funny how that works when accountability gets close to people in power. Then we saw the desperate pivot to Tom Homan. The left is terrified of Homan because he actually has the backbone to enforce our laws and secure the border. Welch tried to bring up some recycled narrative about $50,000 in an FBI investigation that was already resolved before Bondi even took office. This was a clear attempt at character assassination. Bondi called it exactly what it was: slander. She reminded the room that while the career politicians are worried about scoring points on camera, people like Tom Homan and herself are actually working to keep our border states safe from the chaos that has been allowed to fester for years. Here's my takeaway. When officials won't clearly answer questions about elections, when they mock concerns about voter integrity, and when they dodge transparency, patriots need to pay attention. Free nations only stay free if their elections are respected, verified, and trustworthy. If you believe in strong borders, honest elections, responsible spending, and truth over political theater, then you're in the right place. Like this video, subscribe, and share it so more Americans wake up and see what's happening. Stay alert, and stay patriotic.